of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, JP. The next item is to review and approve the agenda. Does anyone have any changes they wish to make to the agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is the introduction of new employees, and we'll call on Deputy Sheriff Brian Mueller.
Lieutenant Tony Virtue will come up and do that.
Passing the buck.
Good morning. On behalf of Sheriff Tome, I'd like to present our most recent 15 hires at the Sheriff's Office. They'll be working in corrections at the jail in our Juvenile Services Center, as well as some transport officers, a booking tech, and some deputies. So we'll go ahead and
Just
Come forward and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Dawson Baker. I am from Wasilla, Alaska, and I've just been hired on as a correctional officer.
Morning, Tim Rath, Sturgis Corrections.
Hello, my name is Rocco Richters. I'm from Sergeant Bluff, Iowa, and I'm hired to work for a Juvenile Services Center as a correctional officer.
Hi, my name is Bethany Coates, and I'm from Rapid, and I've just been hired as a corrections officer at the jail as well.
Good morning, Tom Brack from Little Falls, Minnesota. I'm a booking tech at the jail.
Good morning. My name is Rusty Hale from Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. I've been hired on as corrections officer.
Good morning, Joe Brown. I'm from Rapid City, South Dakota. Been hired on as correctional officer for the jail as well.
Good morning, Anna Bingham from Rapid City, hired on as correction officer at the jail.
Morning, Jeremy Comrie from Rapid City, South Dakota, hired on at the jail as a corrections officer.
Morning, my name is Bill Egan, and Rapid City is my home, and I'll be working transport.
Hello, Vanessa Hers, originally from Kansas City, and I'll be working in transport.
Morning, Christopher Tegnasian from Kansas City, hired on as a deputy sheriff.
Good morning, my name is Ethan McManigal from Rapid City, South Dakota, hired on as a deputy sheriff.
Morning, I'm Ken Ayers. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, and I'll be serving as a deputy sheriff.
Morning, Jeremy Miller from Rapid City area, hired on as a deputy sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Okay.
Do we have any other new employees? If not, next we'll call on Holly Hennis to present some recognition for the Planning and Zoning Office personnel.
Good morning. At this time, I'd like to ask PJ Conover and Brittany Molitor to stand up, please. On May 6, 2015, Director PJ Conover and Water Protection Coordinator Brittany Molitor became certified through the South Dakota Department of Transportation in the field of erosion and sediment control and stormwater management. In addition, on October 23, 2015, PJ and Brittany became certified floodplain managers through the Association of State Floodplain Managers and certification of board regents. They both join a select group of less than 35 individuals across South Dakota who currently hold this certification. Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations to both of you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Okay, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 3rd, 2015. Approval of the vouchers in the amount of $2,033,233.09. Number 9 is to authorize the budgeted general fund operating transfer to the Road and Bridge Fund in the amount of $1,103,378, and to authorize the budgeted Road and Bridge operating transfer to the Capital Projects Fund in the amount of $1 million, as submitted by the Auditor's Office. Number 10 is approval of the lease agreement for rooms at the Pure Ramcota Hotel for the 2016 legislative session. Number 11 is to acknowledge the disinterment permit number 1061726. Number 12 is to declare surplus as presented the following equipment for the purposes of trade. A Trimble R8 GNSS GPS rover with a controller, 2 3/4-inch impact wrenches, and 1 welder Air Products model as submitted by the Highway Department. Number 13 is to declare surplus 2 timing lights for the purpose of disposal as submitted by the Highway Department. Number 14 is to recognize and thank the volunteers for the month of October 2015 as submitted by the Human Resource Department. Number 15 is approval of correction of payee for a refund of penalty fees from Jet to Wayland as submitted by Planning and Zoning. Number 16 is declare surplus 3 X26 tasers and the peripheral equipment associated with them as surplus for the purpose of trade as submitted by the Sheriff's Office. Number 17 is declare surplus 8 vehicles, including 2 Crown Victorias, 5 Chevy Tahoes, and 1 Chevy Impala for the purpose of trade as part of the 2016 patrol vehicle replacement plan as submitted by the Sheriff's Office. And finally, number 18 is to authorize the purchase of 10 replacement vehicles per the state contracts as presented by the Sheriff's Office.
Does anyone wish any of the items on the consent agenda removed? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 19, the request of Dennis and Lynette Hardy for a contract with Pennington County authorizing action against the United States Forest Service regarding the road from Marybelle Lode MS 167.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. You may recall some time ago, actually last spring, I believe Mr. Schubeck was here and briefed the commission on this topic, and at that time provided quite a bit of information, background, his research, essentially a brief or memo on the topic, as well as correspondence with the Forest Service Ranger District on the issue. Since that time, or I guess I should say at that time, I was requested to work with Mr. Schubeck to, I guess, further develop this issue and come to an agreement, a draft agreement for you to consider. That has happened. You have that agreement in front of you, including an agreement to deputize Mr. Schubeck as a state's attorney. That's a deputization agreement that Mark Vargo, state's attorney, would enter into. And I have Mr. Vargo could not be here this morning, but he did consult with me before the meeting and said, if the county commission desires to enter into the agreement that is before you, he will also enter in his agreement to deputize Mr. Schubeck. He wanted me to relay that to you. His biggest, I guess, not really a concern necessarily, but his desire would be that obviously if that were to come to fruition, that Mr. Schubeck and I maintain close relationship throughout whatever proceedings might entail, so that also the state's attorney would be kept aware and have an opportunity to intervene and be a part of whatever might take place. So there'll be some supervision and oversight, I guess, is his biggest concern, and we'll work to make sure that happens. But none of that will happen unless the commission desires to enter into the agreement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Schubeck. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to refresh you on some background, well, first of all, I need to say thank you for your time and for considering this. Just to refresh on some background, Pennington County's roadways have been established in two ways. There may be some exceptions to that, but when the South Dakota was just a territory, all the land was federal, of course. And Pennington County received rights to roadways from either the section lines or from 20 years of continuous use. And East River, the section lines are a no-brainer, but in Pennington County, the roads are all established through the continuous use, or a large number of them are. And that's how Pennington County has the rights to county roads. Dennis and Lynette Hardy have a roadway that I believe has been established through the 20 years of continuous use, which would then become a county road. In 1976, the federal government changed what was the Mining Act of 1866, which provided for the creation of state and county roads from the federal government. Dennis and Lynette Hardy had a mine that was of great interest nationally. And there are a lot of reports around the time of the 1900s demonstrating that this was mined heavily. And therefore, I think there was 20 years of continuous use prior to the 1976 change, and it was grandfathered. We've previously discussed that Dennis and Lynette Hardy did not buy their cabin in the hills knowing of this, of the federal government's requirement for them to pay in perpetuity for the use of what is a driveway, 500 feet. And it was an unrecorded gross easement. It was an easement that belongs to a certain person. And so they purchased their property, and the federal government said, surprise, you have to pay in perpetuity. And so they're trying to establish this roadway. And the major clincher is that the Forest Service has contended that the right to the road is a county road. And if I may approach here, I have the Forest Service letter to that effect.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got two of them here.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to intervene real briefly, the agreement you have in your packet, there were some minor changes suggested between ourselves just recently. So I printed off, as long as we're approaching the commission with some documents, I printed off some copies that show just a few of the Reading minor changes. So at least you'll have that in front of you. That's with regard to the agreement itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And while he's handing that out, I can point you to the third paragraph, and that's where the Forest Service has suggested what we're here to do now. Their contention is that the right to the road is a county right, and the way to enforce that right is for the county to do so. And the reason that the county would want to do so is because, again, a large number of the county roads were established through this 20 years of continuous use. But there's really a sparsity of case law on that. There's one case in South Dakota that really hits it on point. Towards the end of the 1800s, the old road to Custer was challenged. And so that case found that was created by the 20 years of continuous use. And I believe that we can come to an agreement just through negotiation. If I'm able to enforce the county rights, I can negotiate with the Forest Service. But it would be helpful for the county to have possibly precedent on point, solidifying the right to the roads that we have in the county. And the reason that I think so is because of the budget crisis that happened in 2011 and 2013, where the federal government was shutting down or seeking to shut down South Dakota 244 right by Mount Rushmore. That's a state highway, and it was a state highway that I am almost certain was created through this 20 years of continuous use. And the federal government was trying to assert rights to a state highway by shutting down that highway. And so I think it would benefit the county to have a little bit more solidity in what the county's rights are. And also, there's all kinds of people with cabins in the hills in the county. And this is something that I've learned from realtors people face all the time when they're purchasing their cabins in the hills. How do they access their cabin? In the case of the Hardys, there's one way to access it. The topology just doesn't allow any other access, and that's why the mine accessed the way it accessed. And I have an aerial photo from the 1950s that indicates that the road ran the same way all the way up to the 1950s. Does the commission have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you said that this road was of interest nationally. Why?
Actually, the mine was. And that's really how I create or demonstrate my evidence of continuous use, because I can find through the wonder of the internet newspaper articles from the 1900s in Boston and in Minneapolis and in Omaha following the output and exploration of the mine on this very property. And so that gives me some of that continuous use.
So we're talking 100 years ago.
That's correct. And the reason that I need to
What
talk...
is it recently? What is its use recently?
As a cabin. And
so it's a driveway that you're asking us to...
That's right. That's right. And the reason that it's important, again, to the commission is because roads are roads. And the fact that this is a driveway both demonstrates that it should be insignificant to the Forest Service, and also demonstrates that it's very significant to the county, because the way that I'm saying that the road was created is the same way a large number of the county's roads have been created. And if they can quibble over 500 feet, they can quibble over miles. And that's why I think that it's important for the county to be able to, on behalf of its taxpayers, assert its rights, or at least demonstrate that it does have interest in its roadways.
So, Mr. Chair, I still have a few more questions. So what I'm hearing you say is that the county should set a precedent to ensure that a landowner has an entrance into his property, and that we take responsibility for that. Am I right?
That's right, and the reason is, again...
I get your reason.
Okay.
However, that precedent is very serious for the county, because what happens is that it sets a precedent for people throughout our county to come and say, well, I need an entrance into my property, and I expect the county to maintain it and take it over as a road. I mean, we're going to have those requests based on the precedents you wish us to.
And thank you for that. What I've done and Mr. Alderman and I have done in the agreement is, in this case, we've put in a provision that the county will not be responsible. There will be a covenant entered should the Hardys be successful that would make it so that in perpetuity they were responsible for the maintenance of the road. They would take that over. As to the broader issue, again, the ability of the Forest Service to close down roads are of interest to the taxpayers of Pennington County. And it has an effect on Pennington County because if there isn't access, or if the Forest Service is cranking down on access, which they can do under the current setup, they can change their mind because based on environmental policy or management policy. They can change their mind right now and restrict all of the cabins in the hills, which would decrease property values, and that would have an equally abhorrent long-term effect for Pennington County and the taxpayers.
You didn't sell me.
Thank you for giving me the chance. And again, I've discussed this with realtors, and realtors in the county have all stated that they've dealt with this before. And the ability to access the properties is very important to property values. And again, there's the broader issue of, we have a federal government that continuously has been expanding its power adverse to the rights of the states and the counties. And especially in Alaska, this has been an issue. In Utah and Nevada, the states have really been being restricted based on the federal government's expansion of their power. And the importance of this is that I have the facts. I believe I have the facts to establish that there was that continuous use, and that may be a good vehicle if a negotiation isn't able to be successful to establish a stronger claim on the county's rights to the roadway, or to roadways all throughout the county.
So Jay, excuse me, sir. So Jay, can you give us your opinion on this, if it sets precedent? You worked on this with Mr. Schobeck. So maybe you could fill us in with some of your opinion and advice on this contract.
Well, I suppose that, you could say it would set precedent in two ways. One, if this all were to occur and Mr. Schobeck were successful in negotiating or going through a court proceeding with the United States, and came out on top of that, it would set some precedent for what was established. So there's some legal precedent. What Commissioner Troutman alluded to would be another kind of precedent that could be viewed by others, that they need to start coming in here and asking for the same opportunity. So one's legal precedent and one's just kind of a standard precedent that people would see as an opportunity precedent. So I can't deny that. What of course, I take no position on this. I've just tried to assist Mr. Schobeck in getting the documents prepared so he can request the action from the commission. We've tried in this agreement to make it so there would be no liability on the county or its officers, agents, employees for anything, for road maintenance, for any of the financial support or services that would be provided. So I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that, trying to protect those interests for what it's worth. So it really comes down to, in this case, is the commission prepared to proceed and let Mr. Schobeck go forward in an attempt to work out whatever he can and, in essence, set whatever precedent might be set.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So do you think, I mean, or I read through it, do you think that we're protected enough from an accident that happens on that, since it's going to be our road, we will be technically liable for any accidents that happen on there if something goes haywire. But their insurance is going to cover that?
Through the covenant, I would say so. Can I tell you as I stand here we could not be sued and somebody wouldn't try? Of course I can't do that.
We will be.
I think we've done about all we can do to limit the exposure of liability by the terms of this agreement.
Of course.
It's a fair question. I can't guarantee you how that would play out in the future.
Of course, if there's an accident there one way or another, the litigants probably will litigate whether it's a county road or not. I mean, the same thing that he wants to do right now. Eventually, it would come down to that.
And if I can address that, again, it's 500 feet, it's a driveway, and it's also a unique situation. Because I have all of this information from the 1900s, I can make that claim stronger, the 20 years of continuous use. And so the fear of the continuous people coming in for the same type of opportunity is muted, because you do have to go back in the record 100 years to really establish what I'm trying to establish.
Mr. Chair, I have
Yeah.
another question, please. So what communication have you had with the Forest Service?
Of course, the Hardys had their letter where the Forest Service said, surprise, you need to pay this fee. And then I've sent them my legal, what Mr. Alderman called a brief, and I think that's fair. And then they went and did their research and came up with the letter that I've presented to you. And so their position is the procedure we're working on now is the procedure. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, so how much is the cost to them?
The cost to them so far has been the attorney's fees.
It's what?
The attorney's fees. Oh, you mean for the road?
For the road
Yeah.
every year.
There was a $1,000 administrative fee, or a little over that. There was a surveying fee. There was the Forest Service actually wants them to widen the road. And then there's a fee in perpetuity. Right now, the fee is maybe $200 per year. But the reason the Hardys are really concerned is because that fee isn't limited. And the trend of the environmental policy in this country is to decrease and put more restrictions on access to the Black Hills. And the real fear is if you don't, you have a limited time to contest this. And if you don't contest it now, then you're stuck with it in perpetuity, and all access could be restricted based on changes in federal policy. And of course, the rate is adjusted yearly. And so the rate could go up next year. And so they're kind of really at the mercy of the Forest Service.
So, Mr. Chair, just to comment back to that, do you know how much it's going to cost them to maintain that road?
They have to maintain it now. The Forest Service doesn't do any maintenance.
Well, but my point is, the cost is not that much. I mean, I don't see where it's that much.
Well, they have to maintain it now, and they have to pay an access fee, and that access fee, let me put it this way. In law school, we had a case about the central bank, and the justice in that case said the power to tax is the power to destroy, and that's the fear here.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just one thought occurred to me on Commissioner Buskerud's prior question. The exposure liability would probably be similar to whatever that would be with regard to our current secondary highways, where we have minimum to no maintenance, frankly. It'd be a similar issue there, and kind of on that standard, I suppose the highway department would be better to discuss how they handle that issue as far as maintenance or no maintenance, and designating roads in that fashion. So it'd be real similar to that, if not identical.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What kind of issues might this create for the highway department? You can't just sit there, Tom.
I tried to.
I know.
Tom Wilsey, Highway Department. I'm sitting back there trying to figure out how this would affect us. They're going to maintain the road, we're not. I'm not sure that anybody that comes in after this is gonna be so willing to take on that duty. And if we say it's a county road, we're liable.
And that's why we've placed a provision in the agreement to file a covenant that runs with the land in perpetuity, and
So-
that's designed to take care of that problem.
Am I right that we can't enforce covenants? Like, we've been told that before within developments that have these covenants that we can't enforce a covenant. And so, okay, maybe the ownership is the Hardys now, but that changes. And does the covenant go on to the next owner?
To my knowledge, there's not an exception in that it would run with the land. You may be talking about a special circumstance, but I think I defer to Mr. Alderman, because it sounds like you may have a special experience.
I think what you're referring to is the issues we come up with in planning and zoning and homeowners associations. And frankly, it's their responsibility to enforce their covenants. And I think we've always maintained that the county should leave that to them to do so. In this particular case, this covenant would become a part of this agreement in the county's favor. So I would say, yes, in that regard, the county could pursue enforcement of that covenant if it did not occur. But the covenant appurtenant running with the land obligates and binds all successors and interest to Mr. Schubeck's client, whether she owns it or whether it gets sold to 50 people down the road. Every one of those individuals take their interest in the property subject to that obligation to maintain the road. That's probably about the best I can suggest and we can do in an agreement to alleviate as best possible the obligation of Pennington County to maintain that. Certainly, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea if this were to come to fruition that maybe the county looked at that road and suggested a little bit of maintenance change here and there or construction to make it satisfactory in the mind of the county. That wouldn't be a bad thing. But the point is they've been using it and they will continue to maintain it for that use, and that's really what they're looking for.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Yes, go ahead.
Previously, if you said something about an easement, I missed it. Is there any reason that the Forest Service won't grant an easement?
That's what they're proposing to do is provide an easement in gross and not an easement in appurtenant, because under the current federal law, they cannot grant easements appurtenant. And the difference is an easement in gross goes with a person, appurtenant goes with the land in perpetuity. And so the fear of the Hardys is if they enter into an easement in gross, when they sell the property, the buyer could be prevented from even getting an easement in gross. There's no guarantee that the Forest Service would ever give them that easement. And also, even under the terms that are proposed to them now, the yearly fees are adjust each year. And so, again, we're in that situation where the changing policy and the clamping down on access to the Black Hills really affects individual landowners in Pennington County.
The Forest Service is agreeable to an easement. You just don't like the terms.
They are agreeable to an easement, and the easement isn't guaranteed in the future.
Well, I know of not a bunch, but I know of some non-exclusive easements. In fact, we have a party that's last meeting has one of those non-exclusive easements. And do you know, Mr. Alderman, is that one of these gross or appurtenant easements?
I do not.
And I guess I'd like to know, this is news to me, there's a gross easement and an appurtenant easement, and I guess I'd have to understand that a little better before I would make any vote on anything.
Yeah,
we need some further information.
I'd be happy to.
To me, it's the end result is these folks want an easement across the Forest Service, and there's lots of those out there, lots of them.
And my point is that the Forest Service is changing access that has been historic on the property, and the ability to jerk around individual landowners is a fear to me.
my problem, excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I could, my problem is that the normal process is easements, and non-exclusive easements. So that means that even though these folks are going to maintain a road, I can go use it. You can go use it. That's the non-exclusive part. But now you're throwing in some new terms, gross easement or appurtenant easements, and so I got to understand that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question. So you want to do this because you have seen this happening in the Black Hills, that the Forest Service is shutting off access to people's cabins?
I'm unaware of the cabin situation, but the cyclists, the four-wheelers, the horsemen, those have all been very greatly restricted in the hills.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I happen to be on the National Forest Service Advisory Board. I can't go along with that statement.
I've experienced it. I've seen the Forest Service gates making it restricted for the vehicles and the motorcyclists that have always used.
But they have not restricted to people's homes.
Except for through this.
They are now
1976 law.
restricting these people and telling them they cannot go to their cabin.
I'd like to make a motion if I could. Can we continue this? I'd actually like to go out there and look at this and see it and kind of, like George said, figure out pertinent and gross easements and get a feel for this a little bit more. So I'm not supposed to talk.
Is there a second to that motion?
Sorry.
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much for your time.
Does, sir, Mr. Shobek, does Jay have your phone number?
He does, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll call you. And anybody else who wants to go.
Okay. Next item is item 20.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to postpone this item indefinitely.
Second.
Motion and a second to postpone item 20 indefinitely. Any discussion?
Well, obviously, should be some justification for that motion.
Any other comments? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 21. Good morning.
Good morning. Julie Pearson, Pennington County Auditor. I remembered today. This is the time set for the public hearing for the general fund budget supplement to the court-appointed attorney budget that's been posted. The board has the information, the letter from the courts. If I may add in here that this is a continual supplement that we've been making to the court-appointed attorney budget for a number of years and have finally addressed it in the 2016 budget to bring the current budget up to a reasonable amount from what we have spent in the past. Presiding Judge Pifley is here if you would have any additional questions. This is a budget that no one can control. We're required to pay for court-appointed attorneys. And we are lucky in Pennington County that we have the cooperation of the courts, that they actually handle that vouchering process for us and get us the best deal we can on those court-appointed vouchers by having them reviewed by the courts. But technically, they don't have to do that for us, so.
Well, Ms. Julie, you believe this is the best process for us to
have
pay and what works for our budget in your office?
We don't have any choice but to pay for court-appointed attorneys. We also have those types of the indigents that need the legal counsel that we're required to provide as a county expense. We also pay for that through the contract with legal services as well as our public defenders. And our courts and our judges are very helpful in the manner of trying to get the cheapest service that we can get for the taxpayers, and only then does it go to the private attorneys. So no one really has any control over this budget.
And was my question last time, so I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
We
Ms.
have to
Julie.
do it, and we do want to make certain that we thank the courts for doing this vouchering system for us, because they do save us tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Thank you, Ms. Julie.
Good morning, Craig Fifley on behalf of the Circuit Court. Julie has sort of outlined what the issue is. This is really your budgetary item. We try to manage your funds as best we possibly can. Based on the budget cycle, it's been a request for a supplemental budget. We've taken the opportunity to try to more accurately predict the upcoming budget cycle for you, so we don't have this supplemental request, or at least one of this size, in the future. As an aside, I do want to let the commission know that this is an interest of mine in terms of what it costs to represent folks like this. You are required to do that. I have asked the Chief Justice, and he has agreed to do so, has appointed me as a chair for an indigent defense committee composed of judges, lawyers, and county officials from across the state to try to put together a protocol that will allow us to sort of more accurately manage who has access to court-appointed attorneys and the manner in which counties can recoup those funds and have some more budgetary certainty, concomitant with the requirement by statute and constitution that individuals be provided an adequate defense. So hopefully this is an issue that, as we move forward, we'll get the opportunity to address with some more certainty for you in your future budgetary meetings.
We had, Mr. Fifley, we have discussed this with Mr. Witcher, and he had filled this in, and I appreciate trying to find solution to some of the issues in Pennington County, and we appreciate your help, or not even Pennington County, throughout the state. So I think that's the best way to deal with issues, is to try to find some kind of solution of what we can do better. So I appreciate that, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Hadcock. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I've got a question of the auditor. In our budget book, the 2015 approved budget was $682,000, composed of two parts. Is this a supplement in addition to that supplement?
I don't believe we've supplemented this prior. That we increased the 2016 budget.
With the approved 2015 budget, the $682,000.
This would be on top of that. I don't know what you're looking at, if I may approach.
Go ahead, Ms. Julie.
Certainly. You can roll with me anyway. Is this in addition to this number? Right here. 350,000. 350,000, this
I
number.
don't know who prepared this. Is this your budget supplement?
Yeah, this is what's coming for next year. It was the lower number.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was a budget document prepared at budget time for the request for 2016, and this was their estimates. This was the original approved. This is what they were estimating back when they produced the budget request, and we've just had them rounded up to 350.
It's not an add-on.
No, it's only an add-on to this figure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I could add, what that was a work document to show the 16 budget request in an effort to more accurately predict for you. The two numbers together come to that 682. That's the 16 budget request that we had made in the effort that we don't have to come back and do this again.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I might. So you've, to date, spent somewhere around $400,000. That's what you've spent, and now you're asking for another $350,000.
Correct.
To finish out the year.
Well, we're asking you to supplement your budget to the tune of that extra $350 so you can make those payments on those court-appointed attorneys.
And again, that is only an estimate. We're hoping that does it. And that's one reason why when we come in with budget supplement requests at that last meeting in December, we request that you don't use the contingency fund at that time, because if we're running short again, or after this supplement, if it's approved, that we can produce another increase to that budget. We get a lot of bills. We require the attorneys that have been holding bills for the year that they do even an interim billing for us so that our financial reports are more accurate. So it's just an estimate at this point.
So
It could run higher.
So, Ms. Julie, you prepared that this is usually what happens, so you built in contingencies and know a lot of times on the budget areas that are probably going to use contingencies.
Yes. And if they don't need the 350 additional, then it just reverts back to general fund for the next year for use in surplus. So we try to estimate it conservatively high, so we don't have a overdrawn, which can happen when we have our last meeting on the 17th or 15th of December. When you have it that third week, it becomes an audit comment if we overdraw the total line item, or total budget.
And Mr. Chair, if I might, do either one of you know how much we've written checks for so far for 2015?
It depends, no, I don't have that off the top of my head. You have a budget report?
That's fine if you don't know offhand, but
No.
it'd be nice for the
I can
public.
email that to you, George.
Okay, and it'd be nice to know how much we've spent so far and how much, there's just some accrual, as you mentioned, you know, there's some outstanding bills.
It's hard to estimate what the outstanding bills are. We're just giving you a high estimate based off of usage and some kind of average.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair, if I might, obviously, part of our job is to be concerned for the taxpayer, and these are all taxpayer funds. Thank you much.
Any other comments?
I'll email that budget figure to you, George.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve a supplement to the general fund court-appointed attorney budget in the amount of $350,000 from unassigned fund balance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair, I will reluctantly vote for this matter as long as it's understood that, as I said previously, these are taxpayer funds and we need to be very cautious with them. Thank you much.
If there are no further comments, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to have you here from time to time.
I would love to be here more often. In all honesty, I'm struggling a little bit with the transition into my new role. Because of that, I've had a little fuller court schedule and find my time to be a little bit conflicted. With the exception of Commissioners Troutman and Hadcock, you're all old enough to remember the Ed Sullivan show. And
Actually, I love that
Actually,
show.
I remember it.
Watched it a lot.
I feel a little bit like the guy that Sullivan always had on that was doing the plate thing where, you know, he'd spin the plates and get to one end and the other one would wobble and crash. And so I'm trying to keep all this plates spinning at present, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And as always, if you have any questions about court operation, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 21B.
21B, I will deliver them as on the agenda. The first is the transfer of the Caputa General Store business name to the business name of Caputa Store. This is an owner change also, and the transfer fee has been paid as well as any publication.
Any questions on item 1?
Do you want a motion on each one of these, or can we wait till the end and do them all?
I
I'll make a
understand,
motion to approve the transfer. How about that?
thank you. I understand from Holly that the board wanted them broke out separately like this, so you must want a separate motion.
Your motion again was to what?
Approve the transfer.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 2 is a new license for wine retail on-off sale for the new owner and business name of the computer store.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 3 is a new malt beverage on-off sale license for Hysiga Lodge, owner name Carol Duncan.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 4 is the new license, wine license on-off sale for Hysiga Lodge, Carol Duncan, owner.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Number 5 is the Hart Ranch Golf Course Renewal, Horse Creek Inn, Johnson Siding General Store, Silver Dollar Saloon, and Summer Creek Inn. This is the annual time for the renewals.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C.
Next, as you were all notified, the petitions were filed for the referral of the wheel tax ordinance the board passed on October 6th. Though it's unclear statutes, it was determined that we needed to vote early for 46 days rather than 15 that we had originally planned. And we need to have the board set the election for January 5th, 2016, and to set the canvass for January 6th, 2016 at 7:30 in the morning. Reason for that is even though the ordinance has an effective date of January 1st because of the 46 days of early voting, and the law that says we have to have the election within 60 days, which is almost physically impossible with optical scans. We are FedExing ballots here. We will start early voting on Friday, and we only want 2 work days of non-collection of wheel tax. That's why we're having you canvass at 7:30 and in the morning, so that we can infer that to the treasurer's office if it passes, if the ordinance stays effective, and open for any questions.
I'll make the motion to set the special referral of the wheel tax ordinance election for January 5th, 2016, and set the canvass for January 6th, 2016 at 7:30 a.m. in the commission meeting room.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion on the motion.
Yes, can you tell us approximately how much is this going to cost?
About
taxpayers?
$62,000 without any regular staff time.
Okay, and then do we have it in our 2015 budget, or do we need to
It's not in my
supplement?
2015 budget, nor is it in my 2016 budget. It's going to be a split cost.
Okay.
Because of the election happening in 2016, precinct boards, phone rentals, precinct rentals, maybe one publication and some early voting postage will be in 2016. I'm coming forward with a supplement request for 2015. For you new commissioners, in an off-election year, off of my election even years, I only budget for one election day event based off of, we normally have a combined city school election in June that we do, and if we have additional one, we charge them, so we come in for supplements based off of that. We have 3.5 election day events, but we have revenue from our contracts to cover those costs. So it won't be a cash surplus reduction. And in 2016, I don't believe the budget will be able to stand it, mostly because of the about $30,000 that we'll have to charge for this special election, as well as the number of issues that will be on the 2016 ballot and our publication request. Just for one issue, it's 32 pages long. So we know we don't ever budget for that many issues on a ballot, nor do we know if we'll have to go to one or two ballots. So the election budget in 2016 has been set off of history, and we don't have any idea. We're trying to work with the legislators and the newspapers to see if we can do something other statewide to do the publication of of all the issues. And they haven't all been approved. Right now, we're working at 7 or 8.
Thank you, Ms. Julie.
So, yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for
Any
Julie.
other comments or questions on the motion?
Ms. Nancy.
Mr. Chair. So, Julie, you mentioned that if we have it early, that it will make the wheel tax,
The ordinance is effective the
January
date.
1, yeah.
The ordinance says January 1. However, when petitions are referred, when the ordinance is referred, it stays that effective date. We've reviewed this and talked to the treasurer. We've talked to Jay. It would not become effective until canvass. That's with any state or any ordinance, it becomes effective. So we could not collect wheel tax on January 4th or 5th because the election will be held on the 5th. That's why we want you to come in and canvass. Now, according to state law, the canvass board is the commissioners or any of your representatives. So we couldn't wait until your first meeting in January to post the canvass date. Why I wanted you to post it today, as well as we'll only need 3 of you to come in at that time, or we need to be notified if you want a personal representative. It does not have to be you to approve the canvass. Then we can get that done by 8 o'clock, and then we can talk to the treasurer. If the referral is defeated, then it would go into effect, and we've talked to the treasurer how that will work. We will not be able to mail out January notices with wheel tax included on them. We had to make a call, and since we technically don't have the authority at this point to charge a wheel tax, it was determined in a meeting that we would not put that on for the January. The treasurer has talked to the state, and if the wheel tax becomes effective with canvass, then they will delay sending out February notices to be able to put that on.
Okay.
We will be missing January. It's it's more cost-effective for the treasurers to add them on than for us to issue refund checks for everything that was mailed in incorrectly if the wheel tax is not passed. So we kind of looked at it from a county standpoint as whole, and that's the avenues that we're going for.
Okay.
And if there's a recount or an objection to the election, that throws this whole timetable off again.
It does. It would have to be within I think it's either 1 or 2%, and we're frankly not thinking it's going to be close. But yes, a recount would have to be filed in 5 days, and that again would stay it. But again, it's not on that. It's not on the January notices, so they would continue to collect until the recount.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned the notices sent out for the January renewals and involves like Jay, and so Jay he'll get a notice next month for his license renewal without the wheel tax on it.
Without the wheel tax.
So that leads me to my next question, if I might, Mr. Chair. Then, so Jay gets up bright and early on the 4th to come out and get his license renewals.
Yes.
If the referral fails, then he gets another bill later on, or he's free to go?
In the meeting, it was determined that even though the January 1st, because the ordinance has a January 1st effective date, but it has been stayed because of the referral, and the referral laws say that it is not effective until the canvass, which would be at 7:30 on January 6th. So no, those people that come in on January 4th and 5th, if it's defeated, if the referral is defeated, and we can institute a wheel tax, it will start at 8 o'clock on the morning of the 6th.
So everybody that gets the plates on the 4th and 5th,
Will not pay the wheel tax.
and
Or
that-
anybody that they process on the 4th or the 5th.
And that leads me to one more question, Mr. Chair. How long a line, or how much overtime are we gonna have to pay if people lined up around the building to get license plates? Are we gonna cut them off at 5 o'clock or on the 5th?
That would be a collection question to our treasurer. I don't know what her hours are.
Well, it's something we probably need to address.
I would assume that people for $15 to $20 will wait hours in line.
The point you're missing, I'm sorry, Janet Saylor, County Treasurer. People can renew in January right now in November.
Yes.
That's right.
So you're
So
gonna have a line.
the 4th and the 5th isn't going to have any more impact on it, whether or not the wheel tax is voted on or not, because they're all gonna be standing in line for the first plate. Because it's a new plate year, they're all gonna be standing there anyway.
But my question was, if you're in line at 4:55 on the 5th, will you be served or will you not be served? That's my
You
question.
take care of everybody in the building when the building locks, every day.
Okay, so if there's a long line, that's an assumption, but if there's a long line, people aren't going to get cut off.
No, everybody's gonna get waited on.
Okay.
They always
Line by
have.
5. It's just like voting. If you're in line by 7, you get to vote.
Okay, and I've been asked these questions, that's why I'm asking.
Or if they're outside the door and they come and the door is locked, are we gonna wait on them? No. But everybody, because I have a split shift, everybody that's in line in that building at 5 o'clock every day gets waited on.
Thank you, and Mr. Chair, if I might, since comment was made about it's only 15 or 20 bucks, that's per vehicle. Thank you.
Anything further? If not, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
You're opposed to canvassing the vote and
At
voting
seven-
on the wheel
At
tax?
7:30 in the morning, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Anyway.
I only need 3 commissioners, so
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Next item is item 22A.
That didn't make no sense.
I think I'm up.
I think you are. I can see you.
Good morning again, Jay Alderman with the State's Attorney's Office. This item is a purchase agreement between Pennington County and the owners of 328 and 328.5 Quincy Street. That's just south of the old NAU building that the county now owns, kind of on the, we'll say, the west end of that block on Quincy. I'm not asking for any action today. This is just a recommendation to you for the record, for the public. In 2 weeks, we would have it back on the agenda. At that time, then I would have a motion for you to approve. But I certainly can stand to answer any questions today. I don't know that the owners are here today. I don't believe. We do have some members of the building committee. I guess what I can tell you in general, if you do have questions about the terms of the agreement, I'll certainly answer those. But in general, I know there's a couple properties on that end that are instrumental to moving forward with the repurposing and remodeling of the NAU building for the county offices and departments that we intend to house there. Part of what would happen there is the staging area for all the equipment and the contractor. It's a perfect location for that. And then eventually, as I understand it, and I know Mike and Mike are here behind me today to correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point, I think all or a portion of that area would become parking for that county building as well. So there's certainly a need for it. It's good timing for it, and that's why the building committee is recommending approval of this purchase. Again, I'm not asking you to take any action today, none whatsoever, just if you have questions. I don't know if Mike Peterson or Mike Cool have, you don't need to, but I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say in addition to what I said.
I know we don't need an action, but I think we should acknowledge the proposal since it is on the agenda, Jay. So just so the public knows that, we have something moving forward.
Is there anyone on the commission who wishes to hear from Mike and Mike relative to any of the details? If not, nice to have you here. Okay.
I would just, I guess I would say, 5 years ago, it's amazing how time flies when this very building we're standing in and construction on this block was just a thought and a dream, and we were acquiring properties for that purpose. This is very similar to that in that the owners, just as it was in this block, we're not asking them to vacate immediately because we don't need access to the property immediately. There's provision in there that they can remove the actual homes if they have a place to take them or not. And there's some contingencies on, depending on what choice they make, when we can act and what access we have to the property in the meantime. And let's say this happens and they don't take the property, a decision will have to be made how we dispose of those homes that are left behind, just like we did 5 years ago. So that's kind of for a later date, but it's very much the same as it was 5 years ago when we were doing this. So with that, if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any other questions for Jay? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 23A.
Tom Wilsey, Highway Department. 23A is requesting authorization to purchase some Sturtle Coney wheel lifts. These are portable lifts to be used in the shops, in our county shops. We're requesting for the wireless lifts because the other ones we'd have to have, if we did the wired, we'd have to have three-phase wherever we want to use these lifts. These ones we don't have to. It makes them much more usable, much more versatile for us. These are ones we could load up and take to New Underwood to work on a piece of equipment. This is being bought through the state contract. The state of South Dakota is a member of the Western States Contracting Alliance, which is where this contract is through. We would purchase these with capital asset funds, and they are covered by my budget at current. Requesting from you a motion to allow the highway superintendent to purchase the 6 I gotta get my glasses on, I'm sorry. The 6 ST1085 1FWA E-Bright Sturtle Coney lifts off the state-approved list for a total sum of $59,674.98. Any questions about this?
That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I might, we have some of these portable lifts now.
No, we do not. My experience with these was with Minnehaha County. They worked very well for it. We bought one set there, and within a year, we bought a second set. My thought with these is if we should build a new county shop, I can just roll them from one building to the other and not be operational that quick.
Follow up, Mr. Chair, how often you expect to use these?
We use our current lift at least 2-3 times a week. What this will allow is, while that one's being used, we can use these also in another stall. It would do, what do I expect? Once we have them, we'll start using them a lot more, I'm sure. At least once a week. At least once a week, I expect them to be used.
How often, Mr. Chair, if I might, how often do you expect to load them up and take them to Hill City or Wall or New Underwood?
That I can't answer. I can see it happening. If I had to guess, maybe once a month.
Okay.
But I don't know. That's just a guess.
What do they do, if I might, what do they do for lifts now at Hill City, New Underwood, and Wall?
Wall has one. Now, in Hill City and New Underwood, we tow the vehicle here to Rapid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
Item B, DOT site use agreement for salt sand stockpile material. DOT and the Pennington County Highway are renewing an agreement in order to purchase and utilize salt and sand material from stockpile sites located at Rimrock site off of Highway 44 west of Rapid City. This is a site that we have used for several years. Keystone Y at the junction of South Dakota Highway 1616A north of Keystone, South Dakota. This is a new site for us because we lost our other site when the property was sold. Previous agreement expired June 30th of this year, and we're trying to renew it. This will be a 5-year agreement. I am asking for a motion to enter into agreement with DOT for the purchase and storage of salt and sand stockpile material and authorize the chairman's signature.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
It's
Okay.
almost 10:30 for planning.
Oh, my gosh.
Is that the first time we've been on time? Thank you, Jesus.
Mr. Chair, if I might, Nick Strude, HR Director. We do have some executive session items that we could, I know legally you can't go into planning and zoning until 10:30. We could take 20 minutes and do them now. So I would offer that up as a way
Make a
to fill
motion
the
to go into
time.
executive session.
Second.
Discuss portion of personnel.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Make sure they don't come out.
Okay. Let's see, we don't have to convene Board of Adjustments, so item 24.
The Board of Commissioners uses a Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item A is minor plat PL 1526 for Stacy Titus. It's recommended that this be continued to the December 1st, 2015 Board of Commissioners meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have to ask, does anyone want to pull?
Sorry.
If not, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
Item B is minor plat PL 1527 and subdivision regulations variance 1524 for Gerald and Donna Grover to create lots 2A and 2B of Strato Rim Estates and to waive platting requirements. As it exists today, This property is zoned highway service. It's 5.99 acres. It's off of South Highway 16 and is accessed by South Highway 16 and Straddle Rim Drive. South Highway 16 is under the jurisdiction of the DOT, and Straddle Rim Drive is a county road. Currently, there are 2 building locations on this property. 23697 Straddle Rim Drive contains a single-family residence. 13620 South Highway 16 is a convenience store and warehouse building with gas pumps, canopies, and fuel storage tanks. There are 2 businesses located on the property. There is a gas station and a convenience store, and there is an RV service station. Both of those are permitted business operations within a highway service district. There is also a conditional use permit out there to allow an illuminated on-premise sign within 1,500 feet of a zoning district. What they are wanting to do here is to divide this into proposed Lot 2A and Lot 2B. Lot 2A would be 1.962 acres. It would contain the gas station, the gas pump island, the RV service station, and the on-premise signs. Lot 2B here would be 4.026 acres. It would contain the single-family residence and also a small shed. A single-family residence is not a permitted use in a highway service district. However, on the 9th of November, Planning Commission did approve a conditional use permit to allow this single-family residence to stay in a highway service district. This plat, or a variation of this plat, was actually brought before you on October 6th. The layout plat was approved with 14 conditions, and at that time, they were actually looking to subdivide the property into 4 lots. They have now come back and only wish to subdivide into 2 lots, as they have indicated that Lot 2A is being created in order to be sold. They're selling the business. One thing that staff did notice through the layout plat and also through this plat, there is a section line that runs right here along this property, and the gas island canopy appears to be located in that section line. However, staff has looked into this, and in 2001 there was a building permit that was approved for the gas pump island, a canopy, and updated fuel storage tanks, and that site plan at that time does not indicate that there was a section line there. Also, staff has spoken with the applicants regarding this, and staff has also routed this to DOT a couple of times. DOT has no comment about those gas pumps being in the section line. So at this time, staff is basically stating that the section line would need to be vacated or relocated if any additions, changes, or improvements were made on that particular lot. The minor plat and subdivision regulations were routed through the interdepartmental review process. For the minor plat, County Fire came and said, or asked if this creates 1 lot with 2 accesses. It would, because Lot 2A would have this access here and also this access here. So it does create 2 accesses, so this would have to be approved by the Board of Commissioners to retain those 2 existing accesses. Also, the Department of Transportation asked staff to identify who actually has access to the access permit for Highway 16. Staff did find a document from the South Dakota Department of Transportation from 1995 that was addressed to the then owner of the RV Service Center, which approves the use of the section line right here to connect to Highway 16 here. So based on this document, staff believes that the gas station slash RV service station is the one who has the permitted access to Highway 16. Currently, the single-family residence takes access from Straddle Rim Drive up here. So basically, DOT said that they will not allow additional access points to US 16 for the subject property. As far as subdivision regulations variance, the applicants are requesting to waive 2 subdivision regulations. They are requesting to waive dedication of 8-foot minor drainage and utility easements. The plat submitted by the applicants does show dedication of a 16-foot wide water line easement and also a 16-foot wide utility easement across Lot 2A here. These 2 easements right here. Given the dedication of these easements, additional dedications of 8-foot minor drainage and utility easements is not necessary at this time. The other thing that they are requesting to waive is percolation tests and soil profile holes. Staff has verified that on-site wastewater treatment systems are already in place for both proposed lots, so that's not necessary at this time. During the request for comment, nothing significant came back for the subdivision regulations variances. So if I could, Mr. Chair, have two separate motions. The first would be for the subdivision regulations variance. Staff does recommend approval of SB 1514 to waive dedication of 8-foot minor drainage and utility easements along the interior of all lot lines and percolation tests and soil profile holes.
That'd be my motion.
Second.
I have a question. Is this a different kind of a variance than those in which we convene a Board of Adjustment?
I think we've determined that these are waivers.
They are. These are with plating requirements and they're subdivision regulation variances. These are required through the plating.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, we've had this discussion before, and words mean things, of course, and this should be called a waiver, not a variance. Variances require Board of Adjustment, yes. Should be a waiver.
Anything, Jay?
Not on our purpose, no.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
My recollection is that the determination was variances were variances from the zoning ordinance.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the way that the practice has been, and the definition is when you deal with variances and you have to go into Board of Adjustment, that's when you're entertaining variances to the county zoning ordinance, not to the subdivision regulations.
Yep.
So we're nitpicking what we want to call something.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Farabee.
Certainly, this document, subdivision regulation document, validity notwithstanding, is certainly part and parcel of planning and zoning. Hence, variances as intended in the planning and zoning title require a Board of Adjustment. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
I'm sorry, was that a unanimous vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, the second recommendation that staff has is for minor plat PL 1527. Staff recommends approval with 10 conditions.
Move to uphold staff's recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next is items from the chair and commission members, and item A, we'll go ahead with that. Commissioner Troutman.
You know, through the time I've been with the county, one of the things that I admire most is the many different things that we do for our constituents, and a lot of times folks just don't know about that. And through some conversations with different folks in the county, we started talking about presenting this information to the people who live in our county, because they may know someone who can use some of the programs that we have. They may need to do that themselves, but it's important for us to maintain a way for folks to find out what we do. And the chances now that we have to do that increase because we have a better way to outreach to the public through our YouTube, through our better transmission of the meetings to the government channel. So we're kind of moving forward with that. Interesting thing came out of this, though. The city is very interested in doing this, too. They liked this idea. And one of the other things that's been discussed is that there are really amazing collaborative efforts that we do between the city, the county, state, and county. And so there, while we originally are setting this up for a monthly topic, there are so many kinds of collaborative efforts as well as our own programs that we can bring forward, just to let people know that we are not just taking their money, that we are doing something with it to make their lives better. So we're going to move forward with this, I think, unless there's some concerns.
Any other discussion on the topic?
I think it's a positive. Anything that we can get out to the public that's positive about Pennington County and to the taxpayers, so they know all the facts on what we do in Pennington County, is a positive. That we do care how we spend their money and what we spend their money on. So I think it's a positive.
Okay, how would you mobilize this, or what's your thought?
Well, you know, Holly is our kind of liaison to the other county offices. So, you know, we did kind of come up with this monthly topic. We took it before the department heads. They liked the idea. We didn't have it all filled in. They came in with really great ideas of other things we should get information out on. So each department that is being featured in that month will be responsible for the program, and then Holly will just make sure that it gets on the agenda and that the information packets are out for people in the audience and the media.
Maybe have a different department head featured every month, so
Yes,
that would be
always.
nice.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Holly, it would be a department head, or maybe the person who is supervising the program.
That'd be nice if it coincides with maybe the holiday and different stuff too, with what we're doing that month. And
Yeah, you know, we talked about that, especially like in December for the monthly property tax payment program. Well, as we head into next year, I mean, that is a program that we started, people have requested, and it helps them budget. So as we go into the upcoming year for collecting taxes, why it's a good time to promote that.
And things like weed and pest and what he
Oh.
does and before the summer, and how we utilize him, Scott Guffey, in his department, highway,
yeah.
for snow removal and different stuff. I think it's a positive thing.
And you know, like in June, the inmate gardens, what a great project. And that's an appropriate time to talk about it in the summer and spring, so.
Nice.
But anybody can make suggestions. This is not cast in stone. Just give Holly suggestions. It's not, you have to do this. We just kind of started with this.
Nice.
What would you recommend in terms of placement on the agenda?
I was thinking towards the beginning and just have it done so that, I don't know, I think there would be more people here to hear it if we did it at the beginning. Take 10, 15 minutes, kind of like as we did in an opening, you know, when we award people and that sort of thing.
Holly, do you have any thoughts on this subject and how we should do it and place it on the agenda? Since you kind of run the schedule for us and what works best?
On county cares.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I just will correspond with all the departments and send out the schedule once we finalize it and request that they turn it in by a certain time. I'll schedule it on the agenda. I think we were proposing the first meeting of each month, since we do the new employee introductions at the second meeting each month, to kind of balance it out. And
Or time
I'll take
limiting
care of the
it to a certain
details.
amount of time and.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think we should do more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have an informational packet available for the media or whoever is interested in it. We can get that out, so.
Nice.
Different avenues, we can certainly, I will take care of the details.
Good idea, Miss Nancy.
Do we need a motion to enact this, or what?
I would suggest one, yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we do the monthly presentations once a month, County Cares program.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a substitute motion that go along with the initial motion and add on to it that we move items from the public back to the beginning or shortly there, or surrounding this County Cares agenda item.
Is there a second to that substitute motion? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Back to the original motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, any other items from the commission? Committee reports.
Mr. Chair, I went to the, I just lost my train of thought, forgive me, but to the Central States Fair Board last night, and they have some new employees. They're restructuring how they operate. It looks like they've really got a lot of enthusiasm for going forward. The stock show is shaping up. So it was fun to kind of watch and see what's going on.
I'd just like a reminder of the 2016 legislative breakfast. The mayor has invited us to. Mayor Allender has been, I think, a blessing for Pennington County because he has cooperated on many things for us that has made things a lot easier to deal with things that our city and county matters. So we appreciate him, and I would hope everybody would go to it because I think it's a nice welcome.
Any other committee reports? If not, items from the public.
Carol?
If there are no items from the public, we have already had executive session. We
Move to adjourn?
are ready for that motion. Is there a second?
Look at its time. 5 to 11.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Oh, sorry, that was an